Hello, everybody. Welcome to book number 6. As a reminder, this book is narrated in front of a live studio audience. I will be your narrator, Mr. Chance Paladin. I am the author and writer and narrator of this book. This book is called Storm Before the Calm. This is an urban survival story, and I am not a professional narrator. All rights reserved. No portion of this book may be reproduced in any form without permission from the author, except as permitted by U.S. copyright law. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. Content advisory is as follows. I write post-apocalyptic stories, therefore portions of these stories are intended for mature audiences. There's about as much romance as you would expect in a typical post-apocalyptic scenario. Explicit sexual acts where included are germane to the story and not intended to be gratuitous or fetishized. There isn't really any hard swearing worse than what you hear on cable. And there is a moderate range of violence as would be expected in a post-apocalyptic story. However, the suffering aspects are not deliberately glamorized or embellished upon. Please enjoy at your own risk. Forward. When things are going the best, people like to find problems where there aren't any. The times when people are calm and relaxed, they stop preparing, they stop training, they turn on each other and try to find faults, instead of uniting and becoming stronger through common goals. It doesn't take long before each Billy badass thinks they're an island with their own couple guys. It makes them feel great, but they're actually easily conquerable, so there had been a calm nitpicking going on for quite a while. Groups on both sides getting consistently stronger only to divide and isolate. They focused on unified leadership instead of a unified idea. Most groups would form, get strong, rinse, repeat. Nobody paid too much attention, figuring that the groups would come back together in times of need, to rise up and be an unstoppable force, but they never trained together, only in silos. They stopped learning who their neighbors were, and they never cooperatively planned. The calm was relaxing, too relaxing. Few were appropriately ready for the storm. Chapter 1. Trying to get up. Home, stronghold. 8 weeks after the collapse. Late winter, early spring. I'd had a hell of a time getting to sleep. Way too much to do, such precious little time. I finally did get to sleep though, and it didn't take long for the nightmares. Easily the worst nightmares I'd ever had in my entire life. I was surrounded by demonically possessed children that wouldn't die, couldn't die, tons of them. I woke up screaming and drooling, but I wasn't afraid. I fell back asleep each time, even more determined. Even more possessed children, now with butcher knives. I woke up yelling into a pillow. A small contingent of children possessed and controlled by their evil parents. Some of the children no older than 5 or 6 trying to kill me every single time I closed my eyes. I fear no evil, then dove back into sleep to fight them more, even though it was completely hopeless. What was it accomplishing? What was I fighting for? My personal and inalienable right to get to sleep in peace, even if only for a few hours. Finally, after more tries than I could count of trying to dispatch these controlled young hosts in my unconscious, I finally reached balance. It was a black rolling ocean. Instead of waves was inky rubber that absorbed light. There was something cylindrical trying to press through, first 1, then 10, then hundreds and thousands, like heads trying to shove through latex, all off sync by milliseconds. They were heads, bodies, being held on the other side. I just floated in place and stared, finally achieved balance. I watched for a few minutes satisfied. It was time to rest. I finally got a few hours of sleep. Tap, tap, tap. There was knocking at the door. I woke abruptly and pointed my new 320 model pistol at the door. I had fallen asleep with my new sidearm in my hand again. Sleeping with guns is such a funny thing. Tap, tap, tap. Tiny taps on the door. I put my sidearm on the nightstand. My cat already having jumped off the bed to take a defensive position, but curious. These weren't aggressive door knocks. They sounded a little low, also. Low on the door. I hopped out of bed. 1 minute, please. I tried to say in a softer tone to not sound like an angry monster. The last thing I wanted to do was discourage the kiddos from coming around. Before I'd gotten used to it, I never had any money ready to buy their silly little knickknacks or whatever. I finally learned, though, and they were okay with coming around before the collapse. I carried the tradition forward post-collapse. Callbacks to a time where if kids needed something and their parents weren't home, they could safely go to the neighbor. A tiny voice acknowledged from the other side of the door. I put my morning clothes on. It was a few weeks since we'd safely got to our defensive position, a redoubt, a fortified farm, a blossoming community. I was in a tiny house on the edge of the town square, newly built. We'd already met our closest neighbors, which was a huge plaza a couple hours' drive north and west. They were really nice, a little green, but they had the right idea. We formed a defensive pact with them, and in turn, that formed mutual pacts between them and the two other nearest strongholds. Everyone knew they weren't really up to helping us, but we would get them up to speed. Community building, that's what we're all about. I finished getting my morning clothes on and put on my contractor cap backwards. It was starting to be morning, which I guess meant dawn patrol, but I guess I'd see what the kids wanted. People usually used them to run errands, made them feel important, taught them discipline. I threw on my shoulder holster kit with my now backup sidearm, and I opened the door. Chapter 2, Little Monsters, Predawn. How can I help you? Multiple pairs of eyes stared back at me. Tiny voices spoke. Will you help us again today like you did before? They were playing the pronoun game with me again, so simple, very few things to concern themselves with. I had to help them do something. Maybe they were playing a trick on me, I have no idea. I give up. What is it you need my help with? Dishes? But right as I said that and they started answering, I realized the teacher didn't show up and I needed to substitute. It's your turn to watch us, and we have a list. You didn't forget, did you? If you ever got to substitute again, we were supposed to come up with a list. No, how could I forget about you awesome little fritters? I was just testing you. None of them believed me. Freaking kids are so smart. I'll be out in a minute. This made them all happy, and they sat down outside. They were my responsibility for the day, and I couldn't let them out of my sight. They chattered back and forth about how much they loved my cat, despite only seeing it in passing a few times. It soon evolved into everything they liked about cats. The discussion would soon evolve into everything they liked about the cat, and then they tried to one-up each other about why they thought it was so awesome. I put my boots on, tried to hurry before they got too worked up. I didn't go full combat load if I had internal perimeter duties. I decided to err on the side of caution, though, and put on my inside the waistband holster and secured my backup sidearm there. I put the mag for it in my pocket and went to put my 320 in my shoulder holster with a spare mag. It held more than twice the rounds, so I could carry around 40 rounds on me at a time. With just my sidearm and spare mag. I checked the chamber indicator and it was loaded as usual. I put the 320 in my holster and snapped the buckle. It wasn't really for concealed carry or quick draw, it was more for comfort and accessibility, but that didn't bother me much. Sure, I couldn't quick draw with it or draw concealed, but I had my concealed sidearm anyway. What's that for? One of the kids asked who was watching me get ready. Apparently they'd opened up the door while I was trying to finish getting ready. Probably trying to play with the cat. Gotta remember to keep the door locked. It's to keep you little ones safe in case the bad people come. As usual, they continued unfazed and quickly retorted, Why don't I get one? I sighed. Talk to your parents. It's up to them when you can start carrying. Aw, yeah, I know. But there's a lot of other things you can do to be helping out, like do the head count. How many do we got today? There's a pause as she counts. Everyone's here, all 12. You have to include yourself. 13? Yeppers, 13. Great, she was even starting to talk like me. I swear kids are like sponges. She said her parents wouldn't let her have a gun yet. She meant her foster parents. I guess we all here are like their parents. Gotta set the example for the next generation. She picked up her shield, my shield, and got them all ready to go when she saw I was done feeding and watering my cat. I walked outside and closed and locked the door. Dawn was just starting to break. That meant breakfast. Chapter 3, Breakfast, Dawn. I told little Miss Bold to take the front and lead us to the mess hall. We had a big tent set up where we ate in shifts. Eventually it was going to be a big hall where almost all the group could sit at once. I told little Miss Bold, which had her shy sister directly behind her, to take it away. We had a little song that we sang to each event. Headed to the mess hall, headed to the mess hall. We're going there to eat, we're going there to eat. The food's going to be great, the food's going to be great. The service can't be beat. The service can't be beat.